wonder what's hot in the baking world right now? It's not even that complicated. You get store-bought croissants, cut them open, shove in some store-bought cookie dough, and that's it. Hi everyone, I'm Gemma Stafford, professional chef, cookbook author, and creator of Bigger Bolder Baking. Welcome to Need to Know, your go-to podcast for everything baking entertainment. From the latest trends,
this is the viral scrambled pancake trend.
What? To the tips and tricks you crave.
We discovered that if you take apple peels, toss them in a little cinnamon and sugar, and bake them for about an hour in the oven, you get a really lovely treat.
Plus exclusive interviews with baking pros.
Hey, it's Liz from the Sugar Geek Show. Thanks for having me, Gemma.
We've even got the Bold Baking Hotline to answer all of your baking queries and questions.
Is a Dutch oven really necessary for baking bread, and what difference does it make?
Yes, I think we probably would agree on that, do we, Oni?
Yeah, oh, good. So join us every Sunday for your new weekly baking ritual. It's everything you need to know.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
Westholme is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. Westholme believes that when nature leads, flavor follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to another season of Cutting the Curd. This is Jessica. I'm excited to be kicking things off with some guests from the Anne Saxelby Legacy Fund. The Anne Saxelby Legacy Fund, aka ASLF, celebrates Cutting the Curd originator, cheesemonger, author, business owner, and advocate, Anne Saxelby, and the passion she held for farmers and cheesemakers. The mission of ASLF is to provide month-long paid apprenticeships for young adults to live on sustainable farms, to work, learn, and be inspired to create change in their communities. Now wrapping up their third year of having a class of apprentices, we talk with Christina Graber, Director of Programs, about the fund, Mike Koch of Firefly Farms, a farm partner and apprenticeship host, and Allison Srota, an apprentice with the fund, about the impact of this program. And we'll get a sneak peek at the upcoming fundraising gala happening in Manhattan at Chelsea Market on September 19th. Welcome everyone to Cutting the Curd.
Hi.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having us, Jessica.
Thank you all for coming on together so we can really get into the dynamics of this pretty young organization that's already had quite a big impact. And I know a lot of our listeners are personally invested or feel like they have a connection to this fund because it celebrates someone so many of us knew and are still thinking about. I know a lot of people still think about her on a regular basis because Anne's influence was that big. So Christina, do you want to tell us about the fund, the mission and the vision, and a little bit about its formation?
Sure, absolutely. So it's so funny you mentioned Anne's involvement in the podcast. I was listening to some old episodes this morning, trying to channel her energy. So I'm sure she's with us.
Yes.
But yeah, so Anne passed in 2021 pretty suddenly, and many people may know that she had done an apprenticeship specifically at Cato Corner early on in her career, and it had really informed how she launched Saxelby Cheesemongers. And so when she passed, Patrick, her husband, founder of Heritage Radio, and her family got together and wanted to kind of provide a similar experience, hopefully inspiring young folks to work, learn about slow agriculture, sustainable food systems, cheese, farming, all of those good things. So they envisioned it as a month-long apprenticeship. We started with 18 farm partners. We now have 60 farm partners and are fully national with one international partner, Neal's Yard Dairy in London. We have to date sent about 200 apprentices. And I think one of the most wonderful, special, unique parts of the program is that it's fully paid. So we cover an hourly wage, a monthly stipend for food and gas, and then travel, transportation, and housing. So the idea is to really remove every barrier possible so that this is an accessible introduction to the field of agriculture for anyone who's curious.
That's amazing. I love that you came out of the gate talking about that compensation part, because it's so important to honor people's time and their energy and just respect this whole field of agriculture, which, it's just great that, thank you for bringing that up right away. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about in the development of the fund. So many people associate Anne with cheese, and the truth is that her passion really goes beyond just on the counter. So it really was a lot about working with the producers, the creameries, the farmers, the people who are raising the animals, but also people who are taking care of the land and taking care of the soil. What was some of the scope of the fund? Was it always going to be about all of this? Did it start off from cheese, or just what were some of the goals of this apprenticeship that you wanted people to get out of it?
I think in the beginning, when Patrick was first launching it, he called all of Anne's favorite folks. And so that ended up being a lot of cheese folks, but also a lot of farmers who are kind of in the heritage world and network. The way that we've grown it is to kind of diversify as much as possible and follow the lead of our apprentices and kind of what they want to be learning and doing. So the second year we added on a lot of urban farms. This past year we really expanded geographically west and dipped our toes, literally and figuratively, into aquaculture. So I think cheese will always be dear to us and near to our hearts, but we want to be kind of expanding the mission as much as possible to all types of sustainable farming.
And what is recruiting like for you? How do apprentices find out about this new opportunity?
Well, a couple different ways. So our farm hosts are our best kind of networking opportunity. They tell their communities. We really want to be supporting the core communities surrounding our farms. So that's number one. Then we have educational partnerships that we're always working on expanding. So a few that I always love to highlight are the hospitality program at City Tech, which is a CUNY school here in New York City. They are always hardworking and energetic and amazing, and it's a really beautiful connection to the culinary world with agriculture. And then one of our other educational partnerships that we're really proud of is with Oregon State University. They have an incredible food science program there, and those apprentices are super curious. And also, all of our apprentices are hardworking and wonderful. But yeah, we have those partnerships. And then kind of our broadest net is that we're on Handshake, which is a college recruiting platform.
Great. Lots of ways for people to get connected. I'm going to switch over to you, Mike, because the farm partner role was brought up a couple of times just now, and you are a farm partner. So can you tell us a little bit, how did Firefly Farms get involved with the Anne Saxelby Legacy Fund as a farm partner?
Sure. Yeah. I'll start by saying our involvement really stemmed from our own sort of experience of Anne, and the influence and scope of Anne's reach in the industry has been talked about and talked about. And I just think it's, wonderful and heartwarming that in our own way, right, we followed up, we made the connection because of, conversations that we had with Anne at one of the CMI events. And that led to, Firefly cheeses being brought into the Saxelby, distribution diaspora. And, so here we are. So the other thing I'd like to, just highlight in a sort of complementary way is, Firefly is not a traditional farming partner. We started as a farmstead operation like so many cheesemakers do, but quickly as we grew, started to bring in milk from other neighboring farms, and now aggregate milk from 13 to 17 farms, all within a 45-mile radius of where we process the milk and make the cheese. And, I also want to give kudos and call out the really important focus on farming that the Saxelby Legacy Fund has, and how important that is in a really rapidly changing world where the connection between cheesemakers and farmers is sometimes lost, right? So we're just finishing our second year of hosting apprentices. We've had a total of 7 over 2 seasons, and we'll absolutely do it for as long as we possibly can. It's been wonderful.
Now, you are also geographically a bit different from some of the other farm partners that I saw listed on the fund's website. You are located in Appalachia.
Yep.
So that's not an easy place for people to reach. I don't know that, that people are necessarily just passing through. Maybe they are. So just that distinct geographic location, what is unique, do you think, for apprentices when they come to Firefly Farms? The location itself, what kind of uniqueness does that bring to the experience?
It's a great question. I think it brings a lot. We are in a part of the world where farming and agriculture have been historically a major component of folks' livelihoods. And, anyone who's familiar with the, Appalachian Crescent know that farms in our part of the world are not 800 acres, they're 80 acres. And, it is a place where small goat farm dairying has taken hold, particularly among, Old Order Amish and Mennonite communities, which surround us. All that said, we are also 5 miles north of Deep Creek Lake, which is Maryland's largest lake, and it receives about 1.5 million visitors annually. So you have this juxtaposition of the native population, right, who have farmed or been involved with mining or been involved with forestry, agriculture, industries which are all really suffering as economies shift, and a bunch of visitors with potentially $1 million second homes on Deep Creek Lake who are coming in. And so that intersection between worlds is something that I think the apprentices have really been aware of. And I'll also say one of the unexpected things that happened, another area of kudos and praise to the Anne Saxelby Legacy Fund, the apprentices are recruited, are, selected with all sorts of important factors in mind, including DEI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. And so we have hosted a group of apprentices that represent this sort of beautiful diversity across, not only the traditional spectrums, but some new spectrums around gender identity and all sorts of things. And so on the first hand, right, it is so wonderful for my staff to be exposed to that sort of DEI interaction, right? To meet and work alongside of people who might be, identifying differently than they're used to people identifying. And so for both the intern and the staff that they work alongside of, it's been a broadening, mind-opening experience that has generated some really positive outcomes at Firefly. And two, the apprentices who live here and work here for a month, they get a sense for what is it like to be in the grocery store aisle, in a place where people look at you funny and treat you differently, and then to come back to the welcoming group of Firefly employees who I'm so proud of for stretching themselves and being able to talk about it, and then it sort of dimensionalizes again as those that live here are like, yeah, that is true. People do look at folks not like them funny. People do, turn around and walk in the other way. And maybe that's not such a good idea. And maybe we can talk about these things in a different way with our friends and relatives. So yeah, I could go on, but.
Yeah, but I think that's one of the beautiful things about this program, and as a microcosm of why many of us value the work we do in this industry, is there's layers, there's unexpected opportunities for human interaction, and because there's so many levels to this industry and where it can take you, and it may not be the in the explicit description of this opportunity, but it's like what food does, and it's what,
right.
This, and I think that's, part of the reason I love having this conversation with all of you is because there's what you can see on a website and read about an opportunity, but then there's all those other parts of it that can open themselves up to you. And, but on the more day-to-day concrete part of the apprenticeship, what were apprentices able to do or learn about while at Firefly on like a, more of your, routine?
Yeah. So the expected stuff, they're in the make room, they're getting a real life experience of, in a production facility that's, very much, busy, what it's like to make cheese and care for it in aging rooms, and understand that, 10% of the experience is actually hands in the vat, as it were, and 90% is sanitation. Firefly is an SQF certified facility, and the timing of these apprentices, is such that we are in the weeks leading up to our annual audit. So they not only get experience with cheese making and, aging room management, and sanitation, but compliance with a very rigorous SQF protocol. Firefly also has just down the street, 2 blocks away, a full service market, which has, 2 cheese cases, a cut and wrap cheese counter, and a cafe that, serves hot sandwiches that are just thinly veiled vehicles for cheese. And so this year, we had an apprentice who was interested in that sort of retail mongering experience and did some shifts in the retail store. And then, the staff, I just can't say enough wonderful things about my staff here. Every summer, they'll take time to go to Swallow Falls and go hiking. They'll schedule a barbecue at the, Accident Regional Park, and, we'll go and cook out. They'll take the apprentices to visit one of our farms and play with baby goats. There's literally not, a day where they're not thinking about how can I enrich this experience for the apprentice who's just worked, a 9-hour shift in the make room, which is tough duty.
Right. And Christina, I want to throw it back to you for a second. Can you tell us a little bit, picking up on some of the things Mike said, about that process of the application and your review of applications? What is that process like? And I've noticed as well, when you go on the website for the fund, you can see who the apprentices have been. You can see their bios. They share a little bit about themselves. Really diverse range in every like use of the word diverse. I mean, there are people who look like they may not even be necessarily like studying or working in a field related to food, but something pulls them to this apprentice opportunity. So can you tell us a little bit about the applicants and what's in your mind when you're looking at the pool?
Sure. I will definitely do that, but I would also just love to start by echoing exactly what Mike was saying about his staff and their generosity of spirit. I think one of the things that we hear from the Firefly apprentices consistently is that like everyone is so warm. They immediately make the apprentices feel at home with all the activities Mike described. And it's such a special place for that reason. And just like piggybacking on kind of the region and what folks get out of it. This year's apprentices, there were 3 of them all at once, and they swear that they are going back to Accident to purchase a lavender farm down the street. So it's, transformative in lots of ways. But yeah, in terms of the recruiting process and kind of what we're looking for, I think number one is passion. We like to say that you don't need any experience. Allison can speak to this, but she's an artist, I think, is how she might identify herself. So there's no need to come from a traditional ag program or be studying ag. If you're curious and you have a passion for the work, for the farmer, for the movement, that's what we want to see. The matchmaking of which apprentices go to which farms is very much an art and not a science. There are, folks request types of farming or geographic regions where they'd like to be. But it really is, there's an application process, which is fairly simple. It's a personal statement and 2 letters of recommendation. And we review those first, and then we interview everyone on video. So we get a sense of folks' personalities, what they're looking for. And that's ultimately kind of how we do the matchmaking.
Amazing. And I want to point out, because I in your mission statement, it does talk about young people, but I do want to point out that the website does say the apprenticeship program focuses on young adults 17 to 25, as well as graduate students, but also people who are looking at career transitions that have led them to a desire to work in food and agriculture will be considered. So please apply. So I just want to give that little plug because we know often, inspiration for this might come a little later than for others. So I just wanted to give that plug there. I think we're going to take a break right now and hear from one of our wonderful supporters. And then we're going to come back and we're going to get into the experience of the apprenticeship with Allison. So we'll see you in about a minute.
Whether you're a chef or just love going to restaurants, you know the best ingredients are everything, especially when it comes to beef. In Northern Australia, there's a different approach to raising high-quality beef. Westholme, based in Queensland and Northern Territory, is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. Westholme stewards 16 million acres of rangeland guided by their natural ecosystem. They're led by a belief that if they balance the needs of their cattle with the needs of the environment, both can thrive. Westholme's team of rangeland experts and nature managers use a variety of tools to monitor and respond to the welfare of the environment, like satellites that assess grass health and on-the-ground research. Cattle are happier when they have the freedom to forage and explore, so Westholme ensures that they can roam wild, foraging at will for the first 2 to 3 years of their lives. Their cows graze on native grasses like Mitchell grass, which is only found in Australia, along with dozens of other plants, herbs, and seasonal legumes. The result is a high-quality Wagyu beef that reflects the terroir of Northern Australia and a flavor suited to complement any cuisine. Westholme believes that when nature leads, flavor follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
And we're back here at Cutting the Curd. This is Jessica, and I am here with 3 guests from the Anne Saxelby Legacy Fund, each one representing a different part of the experience of their successful apprenticeship program. We're going to talk now with you, Allison, about being an apprentice. So you've been an apprentice more than once, correct?
Yes, I have. I've been an apprentice on 3 different farms over the course of 2 seasons.
So can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to wanting to be an apprentice?
Of course, yeah. So I come from a background of art and nature education, which is a little bit different from farming. But I found that in learning about both of these fields, I was exposed to a lot of new things. I was really drawn to having experiences that taught me about the inner workings of the world in ways that kind of increased my gratitude and awareness for all of the things that we're consuming. Specifically in art, there's so many incredible documentaries that I was exposed to about nature, farming, that showed me that there's so much more to the food that we consume and the food that is really easy to take for granted. And I really wanted to dive in and learn myself.
So interestingly, one of the adjectives, or not adjective, but descriptors that I didn't use when talking about Anne was that she was also an artist. Mm-hmm. So it's just interesting too, to, more echoes of the person this is all in honor of and celebrating all those dimensions. So where did you end up with your first apprenticeship? Where was that location and what was that experience like for you?
The one thing that I wanted to note before speaking about that is that part of the Anne Saxelby Legacy Fund, because Anne was an artist, is a storytelling component. So every single apprentice who spends a month on a farm has to make one storytelling piece, which can kind of be anything that comes to them. We've had people do lino cut prints and films and drawings and recipes. And that really drew me to applying for this apprenticeship specifically, because I noticed there is such a connection between farming and art, and finding a specific program that acknowledges and encourages that connection was incredible. So just as Anne, as an artist, I feel like that spirit, those 2 worlds connecting in her, are continued through all of the apprentices.
That's great. I love that you just brought attention to that detail. So in what ways or I guess if you tell us about the apprenticeships you've had, if you could also maybe tell us a little bit about that storytelling piece.
Of course, yeah. So my first year, I apprenticed on Ohio City Farm, which is a 6-acre urban farm in like downtown Cleveland, staffed by refugee farmers, mostly from Burma and the Congo. And so I learned how to grow vegetables in a team of people, and it was totally like mind-blowing. Like I live in New York, but just moving to a new city for a month and just being thrown into this like new world and learning from all people and learning how to farm from people who have had so many different ways of learning themselves, bringing that all together on one farm. It was like very incredible. And it definitely brought me back this next summer because experiencing like the urban farm was so fascinating that I felt like I really wanted to experience a rural farm.
Mm-hmm.
And so this summer I spent 1 month at Black Eyed Susan Sheep Dairy in New Hampshire.
Wow, that's a different location.
For sure. It was totally incredible. I showed up on my first day, kind of like surprisingly with no expectations. And they were like, yeah, just come into the milking parlor. And within like an hour, my hands were like on an udder. And I was like, this is new. Like I have like having a completely new experience of the world. It was like very incredible.
Wow.
And then I also spent 2 weeks up at Von Trapp Farmstead in the Mad River Valley, where I got to also spend a day at the Mad River Taste Place learning about the retail side of cheese. This summer I feel like was so different from last, especially being like, as someone who lives in a city, being able to see what it is like to be part of a rural community and to have the people at the farms bring me very lovingly into their communities and introduce me to everyone that they call like basically like their family and friends. And also just spending time with like animals, like actually waking up every morning to spend time with cows and chickens and sheep and learning how to like milk those sheep and just to understand the absolutely incredible amount of labor that goes into buying like a container of yogurt or a pint of milk at the store is just, I don't know, it's just very shocking. And it was like really eye-opening, honestly. And then up at Von Trapp, I spent a lot of time watching and helping in their cheese make room. And yeah, I feel like, I guess the one thing about both of these farms that was particularly exciting to me is the size of them. So they were both quite small. It kind of at the size that we are seeing disappear. So even in these communities, so many of the farms that were the size have disappeared in like the past decade. So to be able to support a farm of this size and to learn at a farm of this size is like incredible.
So how do you translate that experience and all of these feelings and connections that I'm sure will continue to be made and develop, for months after? How do you translate that into this storytelling project?
I think it's a very fun challenge. And having an entire month to think about it and to work on it is like such a gift. It feels like a little like art residency, farming internship all in one. Last year, ASLF helped me rent a 16 millimeter Bolex camera, and I shot a film called Vegetable Film, kind of about the bodies of the vegetables in this way where spending so much time around these vegetables and seeing them grow and like seeing how they look on the inside just kind of just increase the mystery of food and life in general. And so it was kind of an investigation into the distortion of like, what is a cucumber if you don't know that it's a cucumber? If you're looking at it at such a scale, like it becomes something magical. And seeing if by taking away some context, we can see the vegetables that we're eating kind of as artwork. And then this year I shot another film, which is currently in the works and is very exciting. In a similar vein, it is kind of a response to the distance that a lot of people have from farming. And I don't know how much to go into it, but there's like this very interesting history of Chinese landscape poetry. And there was a departure in history where poetry stopped being about minute details, like the mulberry bush is ripening and plowing the fields, and turned into poetry of like seeing mountains from far away and looking at nature as a landscape. And this kind of coincides with our ability to get distance from farming and to outsource farming and to eat the food that is grown without understanding how it is grown. And so in this film that I'm making this year, I'm playing a lot with scale. So I shot on another camera that ASLF helped me rent, a lot of images and imagery on the farm, very wide in that landscape sense. And then I gathered all of the items from the farm, like the feed for the animals and the hairnet and the gloves and like the cheese and the milk and the yogurt. And I filmed it underneath a digital microscope to kind of see like how close can we get and how far can we get? And like, does that change our relationship to the things that we are eating and growing? And yeah, it's definitely like it's incredible to have the support of an organization to make artwork like this, especially film, because it can be very expensive.
True.
It's an incredible opportunity to learn about farming and to make a piece of art.
It's just wonderful too to know that the fund really is about supporting you with the actual tools you need to get the most out of the experience. So in addition to the compensation, the and all of those things that Christina, you talked about in the beginning, that it's also throughout the process of after the experience and trying to tell the story or to make sense of it, because it can, you get this overwhelming experience for 1 month and then processing it. I think that it's really a spectacular dimension to the fund that I don't know if many people understand or even know about it. And I just want to say thank you for sharing, Allison, about your project in that detail, because it made me start to think about how this fund, and Mike talked about a little bit about it too, this experience of the apprenticeship is about connecting us with these smaller farms, and how without them, we do lose also our ability to make art or to express ourselves. If we don't have these farms, if you don't have these experiences, what happens to poetry? What happens to art? What happens to literature if we don't have those stories to tell? So I think that that's a really interesting connection. So thank you for sharing that, Allison. Now, see, I haven't even been on an apprenticeship and I'm already like, I'm feeling it. I love this. But I do want to ask, and this is for any one of you to answer, 30 days. Is that a long time, or is that not enough time? Is that somewhere in between? Curious about your impressions about the passage of time with this experience.
I don't know. I found the passage of time to be very fascinating, because it's quite rare to have a month, like full month, where you can go live in a new place. And I feel like it is enough time to get really integrated into the place and give you a glimpse and show you what other ways of life there are. But I think it's also within that month, there's so much to learn that you basically just get to start learning and you see what else there is to learn. So it feels short and long at the same time to me.
Right. Mike or Christina, do you want to say something?
Yeah, from our perspective, it went so fast, and there's always a good bit of sadness when we see the apprentices leave, not just from an interpersonal perspective, but they're integrated. They've become critical components of our team, right? And they leave, and we have to figure out how to make that work again without them.
Yeah, Mike, I think that is the single most frequent feedback that we hear, is that the month isn't long enough. It's certainly something that we are wrestling with, discussing, and thinking about in a very serious manner as we kind of close season 3 and think about the future of this organization.
Yeah, I was thinking about also the storytelling too, and is that something that the public gets to see, or does that go back to, like, what happens to all of those pieces of artwork or writing or films? Where do those go after they've been created?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Jessica. Just on the World Wide Web and SaxelbyLegacyFund.org, there's a zine for each year of apprenticeships, so you can check out all the storytelling projects online. Allison is also working on compiling a highlight reel of this year's storytelling projects. We have a YouTube channel. You can find us there. And you can also find us on Instagram. That's like probably the most accessible, easiest way to learn about the storytelling projects of all of our amazing apprentices.
So I do have a question for you, Mike. Well, I'm going to ask you to put on a couple of hats. You are a board member of the American Cheese Society. You were recently the president of the board, and now you're also, a farm partner with ASLF. What ways do these organizations support each other, or what essential roles can they play with each other in collaboration about our country's food systems or other issues?
Gosh, thanks for asking the question. Yes, I've served on the American Cheese Society board since 2019. So my tenure on the board ran through the COVID years, which were extremely difficult. That's the topic of another podcast. And one of the things that the board has really focused on during my tenure is its relationship, the American Cheese Society's relationship with the American Cheese Education Foundation, our own 501c3. And I will say without hesitation, I think the Anne Saxelby Legacy Fund and it's just so powerful entrance onto the scene after Anne's tragic death has changed the category, has leapfrogged the American Cheese Education Foundation in some wonderful and inspiring ways. And so I think we're just at the beginning of, I think, exploring how the organizations can support one another. Philanthropy is this wonderful space where there really are no competitors. There are just collaborators. And so I applaud what the ASLF has done. I've, recently received the auction, listing of these beautiful dinners and experiences, and am so inspired by the next level fundraising that's going on in our category, this beautiful category of cheese education and farming. I want to say, the Anne Saxelby Legacy Fund has also made the category bigger, and I think that's really, really, really important. I like to say in board meetings and out of board meetings behind every cheesemaker is one or more farmers. And in my humble opinion, the American Cheese Society, as an association, as a professional association, has, I don't want to say lost that, but has forgotten that at the heart of every cheesemaker is that farmer. We're all connected to farming operations. And Allison's comments about scale and detail and the art that's at the center of this active creation are inspiring and beautiful and spot on, in my opinion. So more collaboration, in my opinion, is ahead of us.
Love that. I completely agree. And I'm inspired every time I hear someone like yourself talk about it in those terms. I also know, and we all know, that the reality of a lot of these endeavors, whether it's farming, cheese making, running a nonprofit, it all comes down to money and having the means. There's a lot of always thinking about okay, we need to generate the cash flow, or we need, the donations. In the case of the Anne Saxelby Legacy Fund, there's a big fundraiser coming up, the gala. This is a really big, important event. It's a fun event. Oh my gosh. I always hear about, from people who have gone, just about how delicious it is and how crowded it is, because a lot of people do go. This is folks, if you're thinking of going, get your tickets. So Christina, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about this gala and what is it? What does it mean to the fund? Give us some of the details.
Sure. Yeah. This is the party. It's a celebration of the season. It happens on September 19th at Chelsea Market in New York City. And it's a celebration of Anne's legacy. She talked so much about being a bridge between farms, small producers, and then the food lovers who are eventually consuming all the beautiful products that are being made. And so it's this incredible gathering of chefs and mixologists who all knew and loved Anne. There's amazing heavy hitters like Carbone and Momofuku and Gramercy Tavern and Union Square Cafe. And there's all the amazing chefs at Chelsea Market, who are all Anne's neighbors here in the market. Saxelby Cheesemongers is still here and operating, and they'll be serving, all sorts of cheeses from our farms. We have some farm partners coming in. Sweet and Salty in Rhode Island creates a cheese called For Anne. It's in her name. Three's Brewing brewed a Pilsner called Legacy, which is also For Anne and will be here and is available for purchase through Three's, as is the For Anne cheese from Sweet and Salty. It's a raucous celebration. You mentioned it's a little crowded. We're doing a few things this year to make sure it's a fun party, but also very navigable. So we're opening up certain sections of the market that we didn't use in previous years. And all the Chelsea Market vendors are serving directly from their stations. So it's really going to feel like a private party in Chelsea Market. And Mike mentioned, we have our raffle and auction online this year. So even if you can't come be with us in person in New York City on September 19th, you can sign up to win all of our amazing prizes and support the fund through the raffle and auction as well.
And the best place to find information to either attend the gala by purchasing tickets or to enter the raffle or bid on auction items, if you could just give everybody, and we'll post all this on our social media and website, but the web address and your Instagram handle, what are those?
Yeah, sure. So we're at AnnSaxelbyLegacyFund.org on the web, and then on Instagram at Ann Saxelby Legacy Fund.
Amazing. I have to say, I am surprised at the levels of conversation this went, because there's always so much more to unpack about something than what we think of on the surface. And you guys have been around for 3 years, and I think people had some understanding of the fund and the work that's being done. But now, and maybe it's because of also the storyteller component, there's some experience under the belt of everybody involved, and its impact and resonance is really starting to build. And so I hope that came across for everybody listening. I know it did for me. This is really exciting. And I just think it's not easy to start a nonprofit, and just the fact that you have so many great farm partners on board, and, and so many apprentices who want to be involved and then also come back, and for repeat experiences says a lot. So I want to thank all of you for coming. And I don't know if anyone has anything they want to add before we say goodbye about what they might be, any words you want to leave listeners with about the fund or the experience, or about being involved.
I think maybe Alice and I both have thoughts. Do you mind if I go first? I just would love to add a bit about our Alumni Advisory Council. So we talked about the month being a little too short, and this dovetails nicely with ways to get involved. So we have a mentorship aspect to the program where once you're done with your apprenticeship, you get connected with an expert in the field. And those experts are diverse and amazing. They come from policy, art, education, hospitality. Like, they really run the gamut of expertise. So if you work in this world of sustainable agriculture, farming, food systems movements, cheese, and you are looking for opportunities to connect with young folks who are looking for other opportunities in the field, please get in touch, because we're always looking to expand that body of experts. And I think it is a really important part of kind of how we're staying in touch and supporting our alumni even after they're done at the farms.
Sure. I feel like I actually wanted to say something very similar, which is that as an apprentice, sometimes you can do an apprenticeship like this and it lasts a month. And then after that month, you say goodbye, and then you just move on and you really never hear from the people again. But I feel like a core part of being an apprentice at the Ann Saxelby Legacy Fund is both having the support of everyone working at the fund, the mentors from the Alumni Advisory Council, and just having the connections of the other apprentices. And so I found it really incredible the way that ASLF wants not only to support young people just for the sake of them having an experience, but to also allow us to work together to create change, even to the point that they'll be like, alumni in the area, go out to dinner tonight. It's on us. I don't know, create some great ideas, make something happen. And just personally being able to connect with other people, other young people who are driven towards this in a similar way that I am, has been very promising and very exciting. And I think will be the start of kind of a new generation of people working in food. Also, Mike, I've been in contact with the apprentices you had this year, and one of them told me that she had a totally life-changing experience at your farm. So I feel like it was probably great for her in the same way that it was for you.
Oh, thank you.
Aww.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. And, Jess, I would just say, and in some ways this is, just stating the obvious, which unfortunately is important. Cheese making, running a dairy farm, these are not economically easy things to do. Margins are constantly strained. It's sort of like economic origami. I mean, you're constantly trying to deliver a product that is reaching the consumer at a price point that they will respond to. And the American consumer, in my humble opinion, is spoiled by an industrial system that has made us all believe that food should be cheap. And so the punchline here is this program provides real economic value to cheesemakers and farmers in the form of motivated, intentional workforce that come and assist us, and in so doing, sort of open the minds of the workforce that we've attracted and hope to retain, in environments where that is a really difficult thing to do. Finding 3 motivated young people to work for any period of time, whether it's 1 week or 12 weeks, is, where we live, not easy. So it's real value to those of us that host these bright, wonderful young people. There's so much that comes out of it.
Well, I want to, again, thank you all for coming. And I think, the message here is if we want farms to exist, we want cheese making to exist, we want the experience that these farms and agriculture and farm to table chefs, quality food, great items for us to be able to consume and understand where it's coming from. And to keep that going with generations of people connecting with those experiences, we have to support it. We have to support it all. I just have one missing piece, I think, which is if you're not going to the gala, if a person is not able to do that, Christina, how else could somebody just make a donation?
Yes, just head to our website again. That's AnnSaxelbyLegacyFund.org. You can make a donation there. Thank you so much for that shout out, Jessica.
Yeah, because I'm inspired, and I'm hoping people listening are inspired. And if you're listening to this after September 19th and didn't get a chance to participate in the gala or the auction, there's always the opportunity to support the fund with a donation, or make it a gift in honor of somebody who would appreciate the cause. So again, thank you all for being with me in this conversation. And for everyone out there, thank you for listening. You can find Cutting the Curd at heritageradionetwork.org. You can find us on your favorite streaming platform. You can find us on Instagram at Cutting the Curd. And if you're listening to us on a platform, you can leave us a good review. You can subscribe to us. You can give us some stars, whatever you can do to help keep us going. We always appreciate it. And we will see you again soon.
Cutting the Curd is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.